Hey there, crafty friends. Lisa here, your DIY diva. If you love to craft high-end looks on a budget, you have come to the right place. Today I want to show you how you can take a foam Dollar Tree pumpkin and turn it into the most incredible pumpkin you have ever seen. This will be an incredible addition for your fall decorating this year, and I promise you have never seen a foam pumpkin makeover like I'm about to show you. So I found this pumpkin at Dollar Tree. It's one of the velvet covered pumpkins, and this is a really great size for this project. So the first thing I'm going to do is take everything off. So the stem and the material are going to go away. I just want the foam pumpkin underneath. And to determine the size of the leather that I'm going to use, I'm just going to use a piece of ribbon, and that way I don't have to have a measuring tape to figure out how big I need these pieces of leather to be. And I say leather, but I should really say pleather or faux leather. I found this faux leather on Amazon. I will leave a link in the description box below, but this stuff is so neat. It's embossed, so it has a raised pattern on it. And I thought this would be a great addition to my fall decor. And because I'm always looking for new ways to make over these Dollar Tree pumpkins, that is why I wanted to make this video and share it with you. In case you decided you needed to have a leather pumpkin in material so that I can cut strips of it. I'm going to take these strips and they're going to cover each section of the pumpkin. And this pumpkin has 8 sections, so I'm going to cut out 8 strips of the material. And I marked the size of each section on this ribbon, so that way I know how wide I need to make these strips. So then I just use my scissors and cut the strips of material. Like I said, I'm going to be using 8 pieces of material for the pumpkin to cover up all of those sections, but then I'm also going to need 8 smaller pieces of the material to cover up the sections that aren't covered up by the original or the first layer of material. So once I have the pieces cut out, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut off the ends. So I'm just going to round them out so they're kind of oblong in shape, but it almost looks like an oval. There's a curve to each end of the material. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way of how to do this. If you want to cut out just a few pieces and put them in place and then come back and cut out the rest, that's fine. Or if you wanted to, you could cut out all 16 pieces, the larger ones or wider pieces of material and the thinner ones as well. I think a lot of that depends on what kind of a crafter you are and how you like to go about the process. For me, I get really excited when I have something in my head and I want to make it. So most of the time, it's kind of a work in progress. So now that I have the leather pieces, I'm just going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to secure the material to the pumpkin. I find that if I just do a small section of the material at a time with the hot glue, it makes it easier to secure it in place instead of putting a lot of glue all the way down the material. So once I have the top of the material secured to the foam pumpkin, then I'm just going to work my way down the material until I have it completely secured with the hot glue on the pumpkin. Now, if the corners start to rise up, like you can see mine are a little bit, don't worry about that right now. The main part is you just want to have the center section secured and smooth. This material is really forgiving and very easy to work with. It's not very thick. I think if you were to do this with a real piece of leather, that would probably be very challenging. But this is why the faux leathers or fake materials, pleathers, the vinyl leather, they are so much fun for crafting like this because they are very flexible and there's a lot of different things that you can do with them. Now, when I'm covering a pumpkin with any type of material, I like to do opposite sides. So whatever I do on one side, I go directly across and repeat the process on the opposite side. And I'm literally just duplicating the process, going one section at a time and attaching the material to each section of the pumpkin. Now this is a good view to show you the progress of what I've been doing all the way around the pumpkin. And now I'm working on the last 2 pieces of the main part of the material. And because I'm getting closer to the next step, when I'm putting the hot glue on, I am getting it a little bit closer to the edges, and I'm just trying to rub down the sides of the material so that it's really close and there aren't as many wrinkles in the material. And once I have all of the main pieces in place on the pumpkin, then I will come back and just look at all of the little seams, and anywhere that that material is not secured like directly to the pumpkin, I will add a little bit more hot glue so it's nice and smooth, the entire piece of the leather. So now that I have the pumpkin completely covered, what I'm going to do is come back with some smaller pieces of the same material, and I'm going to fold the sides over and secure them with hot glue. That's going to give a nice clean edge to both sides of this strip of material that I'm going to be putting on the pumpkin. So I like to go around the pumpkin and make sure I have the appropriate size piece that's going to cover any of that original foam that is still showing. I can always go back and cut a larger piece of the material, but once I find the section that I really want to work on, then I repeat the same steps that I did when I was first starting this. So I'm going to put some hot glue onto the center piece of the material, and then I'm just going to go a little bit at a time down and around the pumpkin. When you're crafting something like this, I think it's important to go slow. But of course, you need to do what works best for you. But I like to take my time and just really be methodical when I'm doing projects like this. I think that's why I enjoy crafting so much, because I get to do something completely different. And, it doesn't matter if it turns out, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of it. This is my time, and I get to do something that I like for myself. So I'm just going to continue to work my way all the way around the pumpkin, putting the thinner pieces of leather in place. And this is what the pumpkin looks like when it's all done as far as the leather part is concerned. Now I really do like the stem that was on this pumpkin to begin with, so I'm going to reuse it. And I'm just using a little bit of hot glue and I'm going to secure that back on top of the pumpkin. Going to be so pretty, but it's not done yet. So this was another Dollar Tree pumpkin that I got. This is a smaller version. It's still the same velvet pumpkin, but it was $1.25. And I think one of the reasons I really like to use these foam pumpkins, the velvet covered ones, is because the way that it's raised on those individual sections around the pumpkin. So I'm going to do the same process. I'm just going to remove the stem as well as that velvet that's covering the pumpkin. I'm only interested in the foam pumpkin itself. And this faux leather is the same material as the other faux leather that I used on the larger pumpkin. It's just a different color. So I'm going to repeat the same steps. I'm going to cut strips of the material out. I'm going to count off how many pieces of the material I need, which is 8, which is the same as the larger pumpkin. So I'm going to use 8 bigger pieces of the material to be the main parts that are going to do the bulk of the covering of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to use 8 smaller pieces that are going to fill in the gaps of where this material won't be covering. Instead of using a ribbon, I used a piece of raffia to measure off how much of the material that I was going to need to cover up the pumpkin. And I did the same process of rounding off on the ends, so it's almost like a kind of an oblong shape. And then I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue on the end and secure it to the pumpkin. And I'm going to continue this process all the way around the pumpkin. And again, I like to go opposite sides. So if I do something on one side, I'm going to go directly opposite and repeat the same steps. And I did the same thing with the smaller pieces of the material where I folded over the edges, and then I'm going to secure those in place on the pumpkin. Now, the one thing I'll tell you about the smaller pumpkin, it was a little bit more challenging to work with as far as keeping everything pretty much even. And I think that's just because it's a smaller piece that I'm working on. I wanted to try something a little bit different with the smaller pumpkin. I didn't want to use the stem that came with it, so I'm going to use this wood spool. But I wanted to have a more rustic appearance, so I'm going to use a little bit of antiquing wax on it, and that actually gives it kind of a stained look. I like that. Then I just used a little bit of hot glue and I secured the wooden spool to the top of the pumpkin. I think that's a fun look. So here's my larger pumpkin and here is my smaller one. Now on the other pumpkin tutorials that I've shown you, I haven't done any embellishing to the top of the pumpkins, so I wanted to add just a little bit of something extra so I can show you some options of things that you can add to the top of your pumpkin. Sometimes it can be a little bit scary or a little bit intimidating if you're thinking about adding something but you're not quite sure if it's going to work. One thing I like to do is test it out first. So I'm going to put something on it, but I'm not going to secure it in place with glue just to see if I like that look. If I don't like it, I don't have to necessarily do it. Now, when I was doing that with this pumpkin, I did decide that I liked the Spanish moss on the top, so I just worked my way around the top of the pumpkin and put a little bit of Spanish moss all the way around. Next, I came back with some fall pip berries, and these are in orange color. I got these at Hobby Lobby, and I twirled them around one of my paintbrushes to get that curly-Q look. And then I just cut strips of them off and then secured them to the pumpkin. I also came back with some paper covered wire, and I did the same thing with the curly cues. And I just continued to work my way around the pumpkin. And again, I like to do this without gluing things down at first to see if I'm gonna like how that looks before I really commit to it. Once I've seen what it looks like and I can commit to it, that's when I use my hot glue. I also came back with some little individual pieces from some Hobby Lobby faux fall pieces, and I just took little parts of them and I glued just a couple of them on top of the pumpkin as well. And for those additional greenery pieces or the little fake flowers, I thought it looked really nice to keep them opposite of each other. So basically what I did on one side of the pumpkin, I came back and did on the opposite side. And here is the finished project. Look at these beautiful pumpkins. I did the small one too, but I just wanted to show you the process with the large pumpkin. And I think this is so beautiful. I have never seen a pumpkin like this, and I'm so excited with how it turned out. I really love to come up with new ways to use affordable craft supplies to make some really high-end looking decor that I can use in my decorating. And this is why I wanted to create this tutorial, so I could show you how easy it is to think outside of the box and make something new for your decor. I love how the large pumpkin turned out, but I also like the tiny pumpkin as well. And having this embossed leather, this is just, it's just so pretty. Let me know in the comments section, have you ever seen a pumpkin like this before? Would you consider doing something like this for your fall decorating? I would love to know. I hope you had as much fun crafting with me today as I had sharing this project with you. If you love these ideas, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next creation. And remember, you can create a high-end look without spending a lot of money. Until next time, stay crafty!